There it is. All right, now I had to turn on the mic. That would help actually, Matt, if you turn on the mic. Good morning, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing great, my man. You know, I was watching this article or reading this article about Kyler Murray, and Kingsbury was being asked about because obviously they haven't agreed to a deal, and I guess this will be the segment of quarterbacks and contracts. And so they said, well, we're about to make him, I'm sure, the highest paid Cardinal in history. And let me tell you something. I'm a Kyler Murray fan. I'm a believer in the guy. I only had one doubt with him, and can he stay healthy at his size? Because I was always worried that if they whack that kid the right way, he's out for a while. Because he's not a big guy, But he has shown me that his wheels, he has that Warwick Dunn-Barry Sanders knack that you just don't get a clean shot on his ass. You know what I mean? Because they are that cat quick that they're able to shift and all that kind of stuff. But here's the question I have for you. Okay, you have no choice. You have to pay him. He's your franchise guy, all that. Has he earned it yet? Like, while I like him, and I think he's a real passer, unlike Lamar, who I still think Lamar is an athlete trying to play the quarterback position, I think Kyler is a real quarterback like Russell that brings the athleticism to the quarterback position. But if you really look at his numbers, he really hasn't broken through yet. So it's kind of interesting. You're in that catch-22 that you got to pay him, but you're still paying him on potential, aren't you?
You are. Look, I think it's fair to say that at this point, Kyler Murray is intriguing. He's fun to watch, but what has he really accomplished at the NFL level? I mean, you could point to, well, he's gotten to 2 Pro Bowls, which, okay, that's fair. In 3 years, 2 Pro Bowls, you could certainly do a lot worse. They got to the playoffs last year for the first time. They got blown out. Right. There were reports afterwards that he wanted out at the end of the game, that he didn't want to finish the game with his team, which if that's true, that's a big problem. Yeah. That won't play in the locker room. Then you also look at they and he have gone downhill as the year has gone on each of the past 2 seasons. He has been hurt. He's last year missed some time. If I were the Cardinals, I would not pay him this offseason. I wouldn't. I would let him play out this upcoming year. Now, that's not to say that I don't think eventually they'll extend him, but I do worry about his eyes. And I do worry about if he can withstand the punishment now of what is a 17-game season.
Oh, there's no doubt he can't stand the punishment. He's just been great at avoiding the punishment, which is amazing.
But and the question is like, well, when does that bill come due? Because it's coming due at some juncture. Like this is the NFL. You're at some point going to get popped like a paper bag. It's just going to happen. And again, if I'm the Cardinals, like I have all the leverage. I think we live. Look, it's a different era now. Whether it's the NFL or the NBA, where it always feels like, well, whatever the player wants, they get. Well, if I'm the Cardinals, if I'm Steve Keim, the GM, I'd be like, I have all the leverage in the world. You have 2 years left on your deal. I could tag you twice. I'm not paying you yet. I think he's very good, but things change quickly in the NFL. Last year at this time, everybody thought the Browns were going to extend Baker, and so they give him $40 million a year. And then last year happened, and now Baker is dead weight on that team. So now, do I think that's going to happen in Arizona? No. But the Cardinals, for me, why are you in a rush? I would let him play it out, let him prove it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. That's the interesting part. But I think and here's the other one. When you do commit to that guy, you now limit how good you can be. Man, you better be great at drafting from there on out, because we've watched when you paid Flacco, they couldn't recover. When you paid Russell Wilson, it was hard for them to maintain. They ended up losing what they had in the Legion of Boom. And so in a perfect world, remember they got that first championship before they had to pay Russell. Right. So in a perfect world, that's what the Dolphins are trying to do right now. They're trying to strike lightning in a bottle, and that's why they were so aggressive offensively this offseason, because they know they need to find out if Tua is the guy in the next 2 years, before they're forced to actually pay him. So they want to make sure before we give him that contract and limit everything else we can do, we got to make sure. And that's the problem right there with the Cardinals. You still don't know if he's the guy or not. As much as I may like him as a quarterback, that doesn't mean jack, dude. He may not be the guy when it's all said and done. That's the major risk. Once you give him that money, Matt, flexibility's, now all of a sudden you've got very little of it now.
It's gone. And look, that's also why you've seen the Chargers spend a ton of money this offseason, because after this year, they're going to pay Justin Herbert. I mean, that's coming.
That's right.
They're going to pay him. The Bengals, at some point, they'll be paying Burrow probably after this year. And then you start looking at, okay, well, can they keep Jesse Bates? Can they keep T. Higgins? Like, when you do that, like, you can always keep a couple of, like, they'll keep Jamar Chase, they'll keep guys like that. So, but you can't keep that entire group together. We've seen that now. We're talking about Miami. Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs made a business decision that they felt like they got the best years out of Tyreek Hill. And they traded him for a bunch of picks who are going to turn into young, cheap players and theoretically talented players who will be part of that team for the next 5 years. The Chiefs also let Tyrann Mathieu go because they said, you know what, we can sign Justin Reed. He's younger. The contract's a little more pliable. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. We're going to find out. But, the Bills are about to experience that. The Bills just paid Josh Allen. Now, his contract's not that bad this year, but it explodes next year.
Next year, right.
They're paying him, Von Miller, Deion Dawkins, Matt Milano, Stephon Diggs, Tre'Davious White. Jordan Poyer's probably not getting paid. Like, Micah Hyde's probably on his last deal in Buffalo. Tremaine Edmonds, I don't know. I don't know if he gets paid. Like, you start coming into this problem where you can't pay everybody. And, you're right. With the Cardinals, they got about another year or two of that, depending upon how they go with Kyler. But then that's it. Like that. Then if you pay him, then you have to watch other guys walk out the door. And right now, that roster's not in a place where they can go win a Super Bowl. I mean, they're decent, they're respectable, but they're not. I don't think anybody looks at the Cardinals and thinks they're going to win 13 games this year. So they've got a lot of work to do in Arizona.
All right, let me move over now to the weirdest situation. Not the Browns. That's just a completely twisted situation.
Yeah.
Let me go to Baltimore, and let me go to the East Coast. And I got to tell you something. I think the Ravens got themselves a break, because if this kid had real representation, he would have been paid 2 years ago, and he would have taken the money at that point in time on the peak. Now he had a down year. And listen, I've never been a believer of the kid. I don't think you can win like this long term. You if you can't beat people from the pocket, which he's an athlete, so he'll make some throws that will wow you every once in a while. But can he do it consistently? No, he can't. And he proves it all the time in the playoffs. Once they shut the run down, it's up to his arm, and he doesn't have the accuracy to get it done. So the way he played last year, that it was, 13 and what is it? Let's see, where is it here? I have it. Here we go. 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. His rushing numbers, 6.9, 6.3, 5.8. They've gone down 3 straight years. His rushing totals, 1206, 1005, and now 767. And he's getting beat up now at this point. I don't know if you agree with me or not on this, but I think the Baltimore Ravens got themselves a break, because now this kid has this misconception that he wants to gamble on himself, and he didn't play well last year, and I don't think he's good enough passer to kind of get through it, and I think the league is starting to figure him out a little bit. I think the Ravens are going to have a decision at the end of this season to say, Lamar, we're way apart on the kind of money you want and the kind of money we're willing to pay. And I think Lamar is going to struggle to find a home, because you will have to completely design everything around him to be that offense. He can't play in a traditional offense. I think the Ravens got a break 2 years ago. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's really interesting. There's a few things in that. So number one, the representation thing is underplayed by a lot of people, because that really matters. I don't think people that don't cover the league, they don't understand that. A lot of them don't anyway. Like, that is a huge thing. He does not have an agent. It's funny at the very beginning of this, you made a point. You said, "Well, I'm not going to talk about Cleveland," but I actually wrote Cleveland in here for 1 second. I think, if you've noticed with this Deshaun Watson,
Well, I wasn't going to ask about it right this second. But go ahead.
But if you notice about this Deshaun Watson's, I shouldn't even say thing. This situation, this ongoing situation. There are certain times where, like major NFL reporters, they don't talk about it, and why is that? Well, because Deshaun Watson's represented by one of the more powerful agents in the country, and there's all this leverage of, well, if if you're going to really go after my guy, maybe you don't get the next contract. The point being, agents are really powerful, and if Lamar hadn't got if Lamar had a normal situation, had an agent, the contract, A, you're right, probably would have been done already. B, you would be hearing about it all the time. It would be out there all the time. Hey, the Ravens haven't paid him. This is why. It would get leaked out. You'd see leverage. Right now, Lamar Jackson publicly is losing in this battle of PR, because the Ravens are sitting here openly at the league meetings telling you, hey, we're trying to pay him. We are trying to pay him. We're doing everything we can. And you've got a lot of Ravens fans who are sitting there going, well, then why the hell isn't he signed? What is he doing? Why, all of a sudden he looks like the bad guy in this, that he's not signing, he's not there. I think Lamar Jackson is a unique, electrifying talent. The problem is, and I agree with you on this, when you get into the playoffs, there has to, at some level, be the ability to make a throw on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, extend the drive, bail a guy. And part of that, I will say, I do think is they have done a piss poor job of giving him receivers. Like, that team has never had any receivers around him or any good outside of Mark Andrews. However, I also do think there are times with him, you make him throw the ball outside the numbers, and it becomes very difficult for them to throw the football consistently. It is a very difficult deal.
He can't throw the whole route. He doesn't throw the whole route tree.
He doesn't. And I think he, as talented as he is, I do think there's a ceiling on that team the way they play. I think, and you see a lot of, well, it's because of Greg Roman. He schemes that way. I think they have to scheme that way. I think if they played, like if Greg Roman had Patrick Mahomes, they would not play that way. I mean, that they would not do that. They would drop back and have him throw the ball 45 times. And, I think it's like with Lamar, it fits his skill set to play that way, and it makes them very hard to beat. But then when you get teams in the playoffs, the best teams, those teams just say, look, man, you are not running the football. You're not doing it. And we're going to man up on the outside. We're going to bracket Andrews, beat us, throw the ball. And it's very, very hard to win that way. And it always has been. And could he have the stars align one year? Yeah. But I think it's very hard to consistently win like that against the best teams in the playoffs.
What's the end game in Cleveland, brother? Because Cleveland is stuck in the mud. They can't get rid of the guy. They gave him a guaranteed contract. They already gave a ton of picks. This has become an embarrassment every day. You're up to 26 now. How many more are coming after this? And let me tell you something. I don't know which one of these women were assaulted or not.
Sure.
Okay. None of us truly know. But I do feel something happened with that guy and some of these women. And now I'm starting to think, Matt, people who are abused, doesn't matter who they are, female, male, kids, it doesn't matter. Most of them stay quiet for the rest of their lives with that moment. They hide it from everybody else. They live with that demon inside. Very few people ask for help. Very few people go public about it because they're ashamed. All these things. You just wonder, with all these women kind of staying together throughout all of this and even turning down money, you wonder if it's galvanizing. And at the same time, some of the other women that were maybe, hurt in this situation, maybe those are the ones that are also coming forward now, that are building up the courage to come forward. And I keep wondering, dude, is there an audio clip? Is there a text exchange? Is there a video? Is there something coming down the line? That the end game for the league and for the Browns, I don't know what it is, but I don't see how they win in this one, to be quite honest.
Well, first of all, I agree with everything you said. Look, there's always power and strength in numbers. And as this number continues to grow, and as you mentioned, there's expected to be 25 and 26 civil suits now coming here. Yeah, look, at some point, I think, we've seen since that HBO special with Brian Gumbel and Real Sports, a couple more civil suits have been brought. And I do think that, listen, if you're the NFL, you've got to be thinking at some point there's going to be another one of these, whether it's 60 Minutes, right, or Good Morning America, one of these big shows. There's a good chance that there's another look into the Deshaun Watson situation. Does that give that maybe another potential alleged victim? Does that give them the courage, as you use that word, to come out and say, "Hey, look, you know what? I'm gonna speak my truth." I do think if you're the NFL, you also need to be concerned about. I think we talked about this last week. What if there is a video? You don't know. And look, the NFL can say they investigate all they want. The NFL is not the FBI. Okay, you don't know if there's a video, if there's a clip on a phone. And that's got to keep Goodell awake at night, because you cannot come down on this light, and then all of a sudden that comes out a week later, a month later. Then what?
Right.
I have believed for a long time, and I believe it now more than ever. I think they will suspend him indefinitely. I do not think he will step on a football field this year.
Yeah.
I think they will tell him and his agent and his lawyer, look, until this is adjudicated, you are suspended. Once it is settled, at that point, we will revisit it and go from there. I don't see how the NFL can say to him, you're going to get 6 games. You don't know how much worse this is going to get. And I also feel, I've seen people compare it to a lot of other things. There is no comparison for this. He is right now being accused of major violations of over 24 women right now. I mean, this is not, a he said, she said. This is a he said and 24 she said, and about to be 26. I don't think I've seen people compare this to Ezekiel Elliott. This is not Ezekiel Elliott. This is something that, I get it. It's not criminal in nature in the sense that there aren't criminal charges at the moment. But if it comes out that even one of these women can end up proving it all true, or 4 of them or 6 of them, that's a ton. That's a ton. And I think if you're the NFL, you cannot come down looking like you're light on this. If anything, you come down heavy-handed, and then you can always backtrack it a little bit depending on what happens. But I don't think he's going to play this year. I think he gets suspended, and I think the Browns end up with about all the egg on your face you can possibly have.
I'm with you. I said the same thing about indefinite suspension for him at this point. It's just no way. Hell, I was shocked that they let him talk yesterday.
So was I.
What the hell are you doing? I mean, are you crazy?
And what did he say? It was bizarre. The entire thing was just very bizarre.
It makes him sound like he is completely detached from reality of what's really going on around you and the impact you're having. And I know he kind of addressed it, his teammates and all that, but it just doesn't. It just feels so dishonest. Everything about this feels so dishonest, whether it's his comments, whether this whole situation. And I think that's what makes people uneasy about this. Whether you think he did it or he didn't, it's just a bad look all the way around. And then you look at how this league has handled all of these issues versus women, and they have miserably failed. Practically every single time when it comes to these kind of cases, which again muddies the water when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Well, and look, to add on one more point with Cleveland, just as a whole, the Browns team, as they go toward training camp, I wonder if it's going to fracture the team. You talk about, distractions, sure, but look, if you've ever been in a locker room, I mean, guys talk. Guys spend a ton of time in the locker room during the season. Locker room, training room, meeting rooms, whatever, right? I mean, on planes, in the hotel. And if you're them, if you're any player on that team, you're sitting there going, they paid this guy $230 million. Like, I've been busting my ass on this team for how many freaking years? Okay. And I'm a model citizen. I've never embarrassed the league. I've never embarrassed the organization. And they paid this guy $230 million guaranteed to me. How many of those guys are going to see a tenth of that in their careers?
Let me add something else.
Yeah.
And then they stay on top of that. And I got to answer all this bullshit.
Right. And I'm the
because
one.
They all got to answer
Yep.
it now. Everyone will be asked about it. How do you feel having a teammate like that could have been abusing women? Are you a husband? Are you a father? All these guys. And you're going to put your teammates. And then, by the way, just to piggyback on your point, the players then start holding the front office and holding against the coaches that they brought that shit into the locker room, because that word distractions, you and I have been in plenty of locker rooms over the years. Yep. They hate that freaking word, bro. They hate that word.
NFL teams will do anything to avoid them. Anything. Yes. Except apparently in Cleveland, where they paid a $230 million check to bring in the biggest possible distraction. Look, I can't express how much of a tire fire I think that's going to be. And it's not like, look, not that any organization I think would be well equipped to handle something like this, but there are certain organizations in sports that have been winners forever. Okay, the San Antonio Spurs and New England Patriots, teams that have a culture who, first of all, never would have done this Deshaun Watson deal to begin with, but they would have had a culture and how to deal with this. The Browns have been dysfunctional as all get out forever. I mean, since the Haslams have owned this team, they have been a mess from the top down. And now you're going to bring this in. You think that team's going to handle this? I mean, of all the teams in the league, they would be a bottom 3 pick for me on how to handle what's going on. You're going to have a lot of players behind closed doors who are pissed, who I'm sure are pissed right now at how all this is gone. And you know what? There are probably a lot of guys from a business standpoint who look at this thing and go, look, he's a lot better than Baker, and that'll help us win if he's on the field. There are also a lot of guys, I guarantee you, who saw Baker play hurt all year last year, and who saw that, who respected him for the fact that he didn't go out and just sit on the sideline, and then watch the Browns basically throw him on the curb. There are going to be a lot of guys this year who get hurt, who go, yeah, I'm not playing because I saw what it did for him last year. I'm good. I'll sit out 3 weeks and make sure I'm 100% because I watched them last year play this guy and watch him play through all these injuries. And what good did it do him? I'm not going out there if that's the reward that I'm going to get. Look, in football, more than any other sport, it is a we against me mentality where you go out there and you respect the guy who's alongside you. You play for that guy. And that sounds corny, but it really is true in the NFL. You have to do that if you're going to be successful. I think with the Browns, based off everything that's happened in the last handful of months, it's going to be a lot of guys out there who are like, I got to get mine and get the hell out of here. And that is not a conducive way to winning football games in what is the best conference I can remember in a long time.
By the way, RedRecover is ideal for anybody suffering from chronic pain, such as arthritis, neck, and even lower back discomfort. Only 15 minutes daily will bring about tremendous relief. Feel better without using any medication, which is great. RedRecover is 100% natural with no side effects. Go to the website, redrecover.com. Use our discount code Big OW so you can get 10% off at redrecover.com. All right. I'm going to ask you a homer question now.
Okay.
You saw the Tyreek podcast. I know he's got to promote. I know he's got to show love to his teammates, especially the quarterback that he's playing with. Sure. And he did the whole comparison talking about Mahomes. And really, he only compared the accuracy was the only thing that he gave, to it. We all know Mahomes is the better athlete. Mahomes has got the better arm. Mahomes is the better quarterback. All that. He's the established guy. He's the winner of the Super Bowl. We all know all of that. Here's what I'm going to say. And you tell me if I got suckered and I'm not. I think he actually believes what he was talking about. Not so much about the accuracy or anything, but the excitement about playing with him. I think he really thinks he can play with this kid and excel In other words, I think there was some truth to all of that. Sure, there's the regular team BS crap that you're supposed to do as a professional, and God bless you. That's what you should do. But I actually think there was some truth to what he was talking about with Tua. Your thoughts on that?
I think that this podcast is a bad idea. That's what I think. I think this is a bad idea. And if I'm Chris Greer, I'm calling up Drew Rosenhaus and Tyreek Hill. I'm like, listen, maybe this is a 3-episode deal and we shut her down by can't. Because look, I think this. Tyreek Hill, he has to say those. He has to be excited about Tua. Has to
Of course.
be. I mean, if he's not, that's a disaster. Okay.
Right.
Do I think that Tua is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes? I don't. I mean, I think, look, Mahomes, their career completion percentage is almost identical, and every third throw with Mahomes is like 40 yards down the field. So I don't. Now, that being said, look, I don't think the mistake I think Tyreek made was he could have pumped up Tua without comparing him to Mahomes. That's where it became, I think, for a lot of people, like, what are you talking about? If he had just come out and said, hey, look, I'm excited about playing with Tua. I really think he's up and coming. He's got a lot of talent. We're going to go out there. We're going to make beautiful music together. I don't think anybody would have made anything of it. It was the comment about Mahomes comparatively to Tua that I think a lot of people went, what?
Of course.
What,
Of course.
But that all said, listen, I think in the end, yeah, I mean, he should be excited about Tua. If he's not, he shouldn't have wanted to go to Miami in the first place, although obviously there's a lot of reasons to want to go to Miami. The money doesn't hurt. The lifestyle doesn't hurt. But I think in the end, I do think he's excited about playing with him. I think he went about expressing that maybe in a way that brought more negative light to that situation than need be. I ultimately, though, feel like, A, the podcast, not a great idea for the Dolphins. B, look, you're done with Kansas City. Move on from it. That is the one thing. The only thing that would worry me if I'm the Dolphins a little bit was when he was talking about targets and not being utilized. And it's like, look.
Which that was ridiculous, by the way, because he had like 160 targets. Come on, bro.
159 targets. Like, I went back and looked. So in the 4 years,
he wants the Cooper Cup targets. That's why.
In the 4 years that he played with Mahomes, he averaged 8.6 targets a game, which is 8th in the league. The other 7 guys, with one put aside, who I'll say in a second, they're all on teams where they are far and away the best player on the team, like Devontae Adams, okay, who was the leader in that group.
Like, there's nobody else, of course.
The only other guy on that list who wasn't far and away the best player on his team was Travis Kelce, okay, who had the same amount of targets per game. Right. So my concern would be like, look, if you want to get targeted more, Mike McDaniel's offense is going to be one where they're going to run the ball. Yeah. And they're going to be a balanced offense. Like, he's probably not going to see 160 targets this year. They're going to feed him. Don't get me wrong. But
no, and they have Waddle and they have Gesicki, actually.
Right.
So
it's not like nobody. Like, yeah. So my concern,
and by the way, the Cedric Wilson kid, I think, is going to be a surprise to a lot of people at the slot because he's a big slot guy that can actually move.
It's not like it's just Tyreek Hill and nobody else in Miami. Like, there are going to be other guys who get the ball. And so when he was talking about,
by the way, all the running backs are pass catchers.
Yeah, right. I mean, when they were talking about on that podcast, like, he's like, well, the first game, and I might be a little off this, but against Cleveland last year for the Chiefs, he's like, I had 11 and 189, and then I had 3 catches against Baltimore, and I called my agent, and I was upset about it. And I'm like, you're upset about it? You just had 189 yards. And then, like, 2 weeks later, by the way, he had another game of like 186 and 3 touchdowns. Like, that would be the only thing that came out of that I'd be like, all right, that has to be a little bit of a problem. But all told, look, if they win and he's getting the ball, everything will be just fine.
Yeah.
And if he's not getting the ball and they're not winning, not ideal. But
although I think some of it was in fun, I don't think all of it was. I just don't see. I haven't seen him like that to be a disruptive player. You know what I mean? Because he hadn't been like
Kansas
that.
City.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I think also he might be having a little fun with this, because he's got to also have some logic and say, well, the guy I just joined had 100 catches. Right. So that guy's not shabby. You know what I mean? And by the way, he was the only guy on the team, and everybody knew that Waddle was getting the ball, and he still got the ball. So it shows for Tua and for Waddle. That was actually impressive last year because who else were you going to throw it to? You know what I mean? It wasn't they didn't even the idiot coach we had here didn't even scheme Gesicki enough into the offense. I mean, which is
I feel like this is one of these deals where, look, if they win and he's getting the ball, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And, if not, then it becomes an issue. But the one thing was in Kansas City, that organization, they don't let their players talk. That is one thing. They don't, you see a lot of teams, everybody's got a radio show. In Kansas City, nobody's got a radio show. Mahomes did a 10-minute spot like once a week on a radio station, and that was it.
Hey, come on, man. Stop being so negative. Those podcast things work. Look at Draymond Green. It's going smoothly.
I mean, the Chiefs believe less is more when it comes to exposure. I'll tell you here, we can, I know we're up against, so I'll finish on this. When the Chiefs played the Super Bowl, a couple years ago against the Niners in Miami,
right?
I covered that game. And the Niners stayed right downtown. I mean, they were right next to the media center and everything else. The Chiefs stayed in Aventura. The Chiefs were 45 minutes outside of Miami. Okay, I remember driving out there for morning commutes, and we were all sleeping on the bus because it was so early to get out there. I'll put it this way. That was not an accident. If the Chiefs could have stayed in Georgia, they would have done it. Okay, they didn't want any part of a lot of those guys being near the Miami scene. They wanted them as far away and sequestered as humanly possible. And that's how they operate. They don't want their guys anywhere near the public eye. And look, with Tyreek in Miami and having the contract and everything else, I'm not saying for worse, but it's just going to be different. It's going to be a little bit different than it was in Kansas City, where Tyreek Hill never did a speaking appearance ever. He was never on the radio. He didn't have a podcast. There was none of that. So they operate a little bit differently.
It had to be said, that's just the way it is. All right. Tell them about the Stack in the Box podcast, my man.
Sure. Every Tuesday, noon Eastern, 11 Central, have it on YouTube live. You can join. You can ask questions. We usually have good guests. We had Noah Fant on Friday as a special edition. He was great. Talked to him about the upcoming season and what he expects to do week 1 when he plays his whole team. But yes, every Tuesday at the minimum. You can check it out. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, so on and so forth. So if you like listening to a national perspective on the NFL, I think that'd be a good podcast for you.
There you go. And of course, check out all his work there at Fansided also, and follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame, and catch him weekly here with the Huddle, brought to you by RedRecover.com. Matt, as always, my brother, thank you. Great conversation. Appreciate you, man. We'll catch up again next week.
Hey, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
You got it. There you go, baby. You are now stepping out of the